This got a whole lot of run on social. The quote that I had about Jordan Poole yesterday, which saying that he's just not a very intelligent basketball player.
Right.
And I understand the way that it reads. I know what the conversation was that we had. I'm not running from the quote. I did say it. It's interesting what has come from that. There is a continued conversation about Jordan Poole. Steiny and Goo touched on it. I think it came up briefly on the roast. And I know there's a faction of fans who are like, why are you still talking about Jordan Poole? And
let it go, Willard.
Well, it's not that. We can talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about. It's not obsessing about Jordan Poole. What I am currently trying to do in my mind, it's time to separate the Jordan Poole experience from the punch. What happens, I feel like, every time this name comes up is we end up in the same cycle. Whoa, what were you saying that Draymond Green was in the right? Are you victim shaming?
Right.
No.
We got some of that yesterday.
No,
you guys are going off and criticizing a guy who got, punched in the workplace.
I am not talking about
it.
Right, I'm not talking about the punch at all. I'm done with the punch. I wonder if you're done with the punch. We have been through the punch over and over and over again for now almost exactly 1 year. It's been over a year since that happened. I'm not talking about the punch. My realization is in this moment, so it's very fresh. I have watched these Warriors play 5 times, and I've watched Jordan play 4 or 5 times. And a couple of things are incredibly evident, which is that A, Jordan is now going to be, surprisingly, a lesser version of himself in Washington, not the better version that everyone predicted, because, right, the handcuffs are going to be off. It's going to start. It's going to be that dude. It's going to be about that guy. It's going to be all him. He's going to average 28 a game. No, he's not. I don't think he's going to, because there's also now the defensive focus is all on Jordan Poole. And you're watching him with the ball in his hands even more, make even more turnovers. He's even sloppier in Washington. So translate that to then what we're watching with the Warriors now, who have a replacement who's walked in, put up 41 assists and only 6 turnovers. The team looks more mature. They look more buttoned up. They look happier. They look like they're having a hell of a lot more fun. And I find all of that to be incredibly relevant in this moment. And what it says to me, forget the punch or any relationship. It tells me that Jordan Poole comes from the Stevie Francis factory and all of those NBA players before him who are very talented and can put up numbers, but they can't play winning basketball because they don't think their way through a game. They just go with raw physical ability. That is my read on Jordan Poole. And I find it to be relevant with what we're watching with the Warriors right now.
Everybody fascinated. It's kind of like, when you watch a game and all of a sudden a fight breaks out, people will start talking about the fight. They don't talk about the basketball game. What happened is that Jordan Poole is a broken basketball player. But we talk tons about the fight, tons about the relationship, tons about Draymond and this and that and the feelings and all that, because it's a sexier topic. It's got more layers. It's more interesting. It's easier to relate to. But what was going on, but partially what led to the discontent with Jordan and Draymond is he was a broken basketball player, broken. And that reality has followed him to Washington. He's still a broken basketball player.
Looks even more broken.
The guy has an ability to put the ball on the deck and beat basically anybody in the entire league off the dribble, but doesn't want to. He doesn't want to drive in because he doesn't want the contact. He could live at the line and make 95%, but he doesn't want to play that game. He wants to play this, man, it looks fun to be Steph Curry, so let's just shoot step back threes and heat check threes. Well, that's great if you're Steph, but when you're not Steph and you're making 18% in the playoffs and you're shooting 25% from 3 in the regular season, Now you're doing a lot of things on the court that you're not good at. You're not doing what you are good at, and suddenly you're a lot less valuable.
Yeah.
That was the rub. So he had to go. The Warriors realized it. Credit them for realizing it, that it wasn't just, hey, you know what, we're because they know that they didn't want to side necessarily with Draymond for punching him, and they didn't, but they wanted to side they sided with Draymond because Draymond's a basketball player, a better basketball player, and Steph, and the whole tie to Steph, and they wanted to play better, smarter basketball. And it's clear. Yeah. The Warriors have moved on. They're playing better, smarter ball. Jordan's moved on, and he's still the broken player that he was. He's just doing it in the Wizards uni.
I'm totally ready to move on from anything personal here. This is no longer about relationships. I heard it all day. I heard it last night. It's like, well, wait a minute. Steph and Clay worked out with him after he was traded. Yeah, they don't hate him. They hated his basketball. We're having a hard time getting over this little barrier here. It's not about that anymore. Draymond punched him. He was wrong. End of story. Let's talk basketball. That's the choice the Warriors made. The Warriors did not choose Draymond's demeanor over Jordan's demeanor. They chose Draymond's basketball over Jordan's basketball. And as I've said about 20 times the last 3 weeks, if you think Steph Curry didn't greenlight the trade, you don't know how the NBA works. He greenlit the trade, and then he worked out with him 3 weeks later because he doesn't hate him, but he could see both financially and basketball-wise it's a move the Warriors had to make.
And, Steve, when you asked him yesterday about Draymond and the drama and this and that, he didn't run from the fact that Draymond caused a lot of the drama.
Absolutely.
He's not Steve's not living in some revisionist history. He's not sitting there going, well, we're going to blame it all on Jordan because he's not here. No. Steve's real. That's what I love about Steve. He's real. And he came out and just said, there was a lot of drama, but Draymond caused a lot of that.
Yep. This was the comment he made to us yesterday.
Every season is different. And, for Draymond, last year was a tough year in a lot of ways, but he'll be the first to admit that he created some of that himself. And so I think, this team has responded in a lot of ways to where we went wrong last year. And Draymond is at the forefront of that. I think he understands this year that he's got to be a better leader. I think he's doing a great job. I think from the summer on, he's really tried to get the troops together and really connect everybody and keep everybody's spirits up. So, last year was tough in a lot of ways, but, the great thing about adversity in sports, if you've got a veteran team, if you've got guys who are willing to learn from mistakes, then that's what we're doing. And we are all doing a better job of connecting the group and creating better chemistry.
So that takes us to where I think the conversation goes next. And it's a little bit of a question like, are we getting ahead of ourselves? Sometimes that's a funny question in sports media because the answer is always yes.
Right.
It's just an omnipresent answer. Yes, we are getting ahead of ourselves. Remember when the Niners were going to be 17-0? I can't wait for the Super Bowl, and the NFC title game against the Eagles is going to be amazing.
I already booked my hotel.
Are we getting ahead of ourselves? Yes, we are. So we're totally doing that with the Warriors also. But I do think there's a real interesting conversation with regard to, okay, it's only 5 games, but what do you see that either has you excited or you believe is so much better than what the Warriors were doing last year? My answer to that is almost the same way I sort of drafted my argument through the months about Trey Lance and why the 49ers weren't into him anymore. Because people would go, but he hasn't played. How can you say that when he hasn't played? And I said, well, the Niners have seen him play. So I'm not drafting my opinion based on what I see. I go to some practices. I don't go to most. So, and I'm also not an NFL scout. So I can look at him and be like, yeah, okay, good arm, good legs, got size, seems to be a good dude. Like that. But my opinion was based off of my assessment of what the Niners were telling me.
Because all we're getting is glimpses.
And not through their words, because their words are always going to be glossed over.
They're going to be pro until the day they move the player.
Totally. They're going to support the guy.
Right.
So I say, hey, Niners, What are your actions telling me? So let's do that with the Warriors. Forget that they're 4-1, and maybe they've got some good metrics and spots, some bad ones, too small of a sample. I'm excited about this year because of what the Warrior body language and action is telling me. It's telling me that you have got peace of mind. You've got a group that already understands one another. They're gelling. They're excited to play basketball. It's the kind of thing as to why the Giants have been so unexciting the last couple of years, because you look at them and their body language and you're just like, I got nothing. You're giving me nothing.
And, mix in no power, no speed.
Right. Yes, lack of talent.
No athleticism.
But the Warriors, even last year, you're drunk with talent, but your body language is telling us, this is hard for us to get inspired. These 5 games, very easy to be enthralled with what they're doing.
Yeah. No, I more than anything, too, is that you need a blend of young and old. We know they've got older players. The question is, can they have some younger players? And they found a couple younger players that know how to play. And that's really so exciting. I'm really excited for Podziemski, and I did an interview with him this summer in the Summer League. And then when I watched him in the Summer League, I was like, I don't know, man. He just turned the ball over in mass. It was like the quickness and the length of NBA defenders was something that he took a couple games to get used to. But now, between then and now he just, he looks like a guy he looks a lot like Dante DiVincenzo to me. He looks like a guy who's going to rebound the heck out of the ball, and he knows how to play, and he's asking lots of questions, and you can see Steph kind of tutoring him on the side. And then Trace Jackson-Davis was just, I don't know how that guy wound up at 57.
That is wild.
It's amazing. His dad played in the league.
A late second rounder in the NBA is usually a complete flyer. Somebody internationally who you're like, maybe in a couple of years we'll have access to him.
Maybe some guy who played well in the Sun Belt Conference. Totally. This guy did it for 4 years in the Big Ten for a powerhouse, iconic program, and he's a shot blocker, rebounder, passer. The guy knows how to play. I mean, you can see. I mean, he knows more about how to position his body than James Wiseman. And Steve said it to us yesterday, and it's it's plain as day when you watch him. If he had to play, let's say Looney had some kind of injury and you had to play Trace Jackson-Davis for 3 weeks, I think he could do it. I really believe he can do it. So I think that's a part of it. You got to have some youth on your roster because they're seeing things for the first time, and it kind of brings you a level of enthusiasm and newness that's really refreshing. But you also want rookies that make a ton of mistakes that cost you games and you can't put on the floor. They've got the best combo. They got these rookies that are sponges, want to learn, but can be depended on for rotation minutes if need be. So I think their mix is really good. And you got to credit Dunleavy because Joe's probably a hard guy to work for. The microscope is intense. Every move is going to be measured and analyzed. And he put together kind of the right puzzle pieces. At least it looks like it.
Yeah,
so far.
It does. That's exactly the word that was in my brain. It's a puzzle right now. The pieces absolutely feel like they're fitting together.